When your marriage is dying and your husband is packing for another business trip, sometimes the only way to save it is to risk losing everything in one desperate moment. Lisa sat on the edge of their bed, staring at the suitcase Tom had packed for yet another business trip. 3 years of marriage, and she couldn't remember the last time they had a real conversation. Not about work, not about bills, not about whose turn it was to take out the trash. A real conversation where they actually looked into each other's eyes and talked about things that mattered. The house felt empty even when he was home. They moved around each other like polite strangers sharing the same space. "Good morning. How was your day? What's for dinner?" The same routine every single day. It was like living with a roommate she used to love but barely knew anymore. She watched him fold his shirts the same way he always did, methodically and quietly. When did they stop talking? When did they stop laughing together? She remembered their early days when they would stay up all night just talking about everything and nothing. Dreams, fears, silly jokes that only made sense to them. Now they couldn't even agree on what to watch on television. "Another conference?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Yeah, Chicago this time. 3 days." He didn't look up from his packing. Lisa felt something break inside her chest. Not her heart exactly, but something deeper. The hope she had been carrying around like a fragile bird in her hands. She had been trying so hard to fix things between them. She bought his favorite foods, suggested date nights, even tried couples counseling. But you can't fix something when only one person is trying. The counseling sessions had been painful. Sitting in that beige office with the tissues on every table, trying to explain to a stranger why her husband felt like a stranger too. Tom would nod and say the right things, promise to try harder, but nothing ever changed. If anything, he seemed to pull away even more after each session. "We can't keep doing this," she said quietly. "Doing what?" But his voice told her he knew exactly what she meant. "This. Pretending we're okay. Pretending we're still married in any way that matters." Tom finally stopped packing and looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time in months. She could see the tiredness in his eyes, the same exhaustion she felt every day. They were both drowning, but in separate oceans. "I don't know what you want me to say, Lisa, that was the problem." He never knew what to say anymore. Or maybe he just didn't want to say it. She had spent so many nights lying next to him, feeling more alone than she had ever felt as a single person. At least when you're single, you know why you're alone. "I want you to fight for us," she said. "I want you to care enough to have one real conversation about what's happening here." "I do care." "Do you?" "Because it doesn't feel that way. You leave for work early, you come home late, and now you're taking more trips. It feels like you're running away from me." Tom sat down on his side of the bed, but it might as well have been a different country. The space between them felt impossible to cross. "I'm not running away. I'm working. We have bills, we have the mortgage, we have each other, or we used to." The silence stretched between them like a canyon. Lisa could hear the neighbor's television through the thin walls, some comedy show with a laugh track. It seemed cruel that somewhere people were laughing when her world was falling apart in slow motion. She thought about their wedding day, how sure they had been that they were different, that they would never become one of those couples who stopped seeing each other. They had promised to always communicate, to never go to bed angry, to choose love every single day, but promises are easier to make than to keep. "What happened to us?" she whispered. Tom's shoulders sagged like he was carrying invisible weight. "I don't know. Work got crazy, you started that new job, and then we stopped trying. Maybe we're just different people now." The words hit her like ice water. Different people? Is that what they were? Had they grown so far apart that they couldn't find their way back to each other? She looked at this man she had promised to love forever, and for a moment he looked like a complete stranger. But then she saw something in his expression, a flash of the man she fell in love with, the one who used to bring her coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, the one who would dance with her in the kitchen while they cooked dinner, the one who told her she was beautiful even when she was sick with the flu and looked terrible. That man was still there, buried under layers of routine and disappointment and fear. She could feel it. The question was whether he wanted to fight his way back to the surface, or if he was content to stay buried forever. Tom zipped up his suitcase with a sound like finality. "I should get going. Early flight tomorrow." Lisa felt panic rise in her throat. He was going to leave. Again. And when he came back, they would slip back into the same pattern of polite distance. They would keep living like strangers until one day they would realize they had wasted years of their lives being lonely together. She had tried everything else. The romantic dinners he barely noticed, the conversations he avoided, the counseling sessions he attended but didn't really participate in. She had tried being patient, understanding, supportive. None of it worked because you can't save a marriage by yourself. But maybe, just maybe, she could shock him awake. Maybe she could break through all the walls they had built around themselves and force him to see what they were losing. It was a desperate idea, maybe even a dangerous one, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Standing up from the bed, Lisa felt her heart pounding against her ribs. This was either going to save them or destroy whatever was left. But doing nothing was destroying them anyway, just slowly. "Tom," she said, and something in her voice made him turn around. She could see in his eyes that he was already halfway out the door, already planning his escape to Chicago, where he could pretend their problems didn't exist. But she wasn't going to let him run away this time. Not without a fight. This was their moment of truth. The crossroads where they would either choose to fight for their marriage or let it die a quiet death. Lisa took a deep breath and prepared to take the biggest risk of her life. Tom was halfway to the door when Lisa's voice stopped him cold. There was something different about the way she said his name. Something that made him turn around even though every instinct told him to keep walking. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Lisa was standing by their bed and she was crying. Not the quiet tears he had learned to ignore over the past few months, but real tears that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her soul. "Don't leave," she said simply. "Not this time." Tom felt his hand tighten on the suitcase handle. "Lisa, I have to catch that flight. The meeting is important. More important than this? More important than us." He wanted to say yes because it would be easier. Work was simple. Work made sense. You did your job, you got paid, you went home. There were no complicated emotions or difficult conversations. There were no expectations you couldn't meet. But looking at his wife standing there with tears streaming down her face, he couldn't bring himself to lie anymore. "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted, quietly. "Neither do I. But running away to Chicago isn't going to help." Tom set down his suitcase and really looked at her. When had she gotten so thin? When had those worry lines appeared around her eyes? He had been so busy avoiding her that he hadn't noticed she was disappearing right in front of him. "We've tried everything," he said. "The counseling, the date nights, the talks. Nothing works. We haven't tried being honest." "What do you mean?" Lisa walked closer to him, and he could see how much courage it was taking her to do this. "I mean really honest. About how scared we are. About how we don't know who we are anymore. About how we're both pretending everything is fine when we're both miserable." Tom felt something twist in his chest. She was right. They had been going through the motions of trying to fix their marriage, but they had never actually talked about how broken they both felt. "I am scared," he said, the words coming out before he could stop them. "Of what? Of you, of this. Of failing at the one thing that's supposed to matter most." Lisa's eyes widened like she hadn't expected him to actually answer. "You're not failing. We're both failing. Together." "That doesn't make me feel better." "It should. Because if we're failing together, maybe we can succeed together too." Tom wanted to believe her, but he had built such high walls around his heart that he didn't know how to tear them down. What if we can't? What if we try again and it still doesn't work? Then at least we'll know we gave it everything we had. The room felt charged with electricity, like the air before a thunderstorm. Tom could feel something shifting between them, something that had been frozen for months finally starting to thaw. "I miss you," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. Those 3 words hit him harder than anything she could have shouted, because he missed her too. He missed the woman who used to laugh at his terrible jokes. He missed the conversations that lasted until sunrise. He missed feeling like he had a partner instead of a stranger who happened to share his address. "I miss you too," he said, and it felt like admitting to a crime. "Then why do you keep leaving?" The question hung between them like a bridge he was afraid to cross. How could he explain that he left because staying hurt too much? That every day in this house reminded him of how happy they used to be and how far they had fallen? "Because when I'm here, I can see how disappointed you are in me, and I don't know how to fix it." "I'm not disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in us, in what we've become." "What have we become?" Lisa looked around their bedroom like she was seeing it for the first time. "Strangers. We've become strangers who happen to be married." The truth of it knocked the wind out of him. That's exactly what they had become. 2 people sharing a space but not a life. going through the motions of marriage without any of the connection that made it meaningful. "I don't want to be strangers anymore," she said. "I don't either, but I don't remember how to be anything else." Lisa took another step closer and Tom could smell her perfume, the same perfume she had worn on their first date, their wedding day, every important moment of their relationship. It made his heart ache with memory. "Then let's figure it out together. Right now. No more running away to Chicago. No more hiding behind work and schedules and all the other excuses we've been using." Tom felt panic rise in his throat. "Lisa, I don't know if I can do this." "Do what?" "Be vulnerable again. Open up. Risk getting hurt. You're already hurt. We both are. The question is whether we want to heal together or bleed to death separately." Her words were like a slap of cold water. She was right. They were both already in pain. The only difference was whether they would face it together or continue to suffer alone. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I want you to stay. I want you to miss that flight. I want you to sit down and talk to me like we used to talk. Like I'm someone you actually want to know." Tom looked at his suitcase by the door, then back at his wife. This was the moment. The choice that would determine whether their marriage survived or died tonight. He could pick up that suitcase, kiss her goodbye like always, and fly to Chicago. Keep the peace. Avoid the difficult conversation. Maintain the status quo that was slowly killing them both. Or he could stay. He could choose his wife over his fear. He could risk everything on the chance that love might be enough to bridge the gap between who they used to be and who they could become. Lisa was watching him with an expression that was equal parts hope and terror. She had laid her heart on the line, and now she was waiting to see if he would do the same. Time seemed to slow down as Tom made his choice. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed his boss's number. "Hey, it's Tom. I need to cancel my flight to Chicago. Something important came up at home." The silence after Tom hung up the phone was deafening. Lisa stared at him like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. He had actually done it. He had chosen her over work, over his escape plan, over his fear. "You canceled your trip," she said, her voice full of wonder. "Yeah, I did." Tom felt strange, like he had just jumped off a cliff and was still falling. Now what? That was the million-dollar question. They had talked about being honest, about breaking down walls, but neither of them really knew how to start. They had spent so long avoiding difficult conversations that they had forgotten how to have them. Lisa sat down on the edge of the bed and patted the space next to her. After a moment's hesitation, Tom joined her. The mattress dipped under his weight, and suddenly they were sitting closer than they had in months. "I don't even know where to begin," Lisa admitted. "Maybe we start with the truth. The real truth, not the polite version we tell everyone else." "Okay." She took a shaky breath. "The truth is, I feel like I'm living with a ghost. You're here, but you're not really here, and I don't know what I did wrong." Her words hit him like physical blows. "You didn't do anything wrong. Then why do you act like you can't stand to be around me?" Tom felt his chest tighten. How could he explain that it wasn't her he couldn't stand but himself? That every day he felt like he was failing her in ways he couldn't even name? "It's not you," he said quietly. "It's me. I look at you and I see all the ways I'm not the husband you deserve." "What are you talking about?" "Remember when we got married? I promised you adventures. I promised you romance and laughter and a life full of excitement. Instead, I gave you a guy who works 60 hours a week and falls asleep watching television." Lisa turned to face him fully. "Do you think I married you for adventures?" "Didn't you?" "Tom, I married you because you made me feel safe. Because you were kind and funny and decent. Because when I looked at you, I could see our whole future together and it looked beautiful. And now?" She was quiet for a long moment, and Tom felt his heart hammering against his ribs. "Now I look at you and I see a stranger who's given up on that future." The words stung because they were true. Somewhere along the way, he had stopped believing in their future together. He had stopped trying to be the man she fell in love with and settled for being a provider instead of a partner. "When did I give up?" he asked. "I think it was gradual. Like watching paint dry or grass grow. You don't notice it happening until one day you wake up and everything is different." Tom thought back over the past few years, trying to pinpoint the moment things changed. Was it when he got promoted and started working longer hours? Was it when they had that fight about starting a family and couldn't agree? Was it when his father died and he shut down emotionally for months? Maybe it was all of those things. Maybe it was none of them. Maybe they had just gotten comfortable and stopped putting in effort. assuming their love would carry them through anything. "I used to bring you coffee in bed on Sunday mornings," he said suddenly. "I remember." "When did I stop doing that?" "About a year ago. I kept waiting for you to remember, but you never did." Tom felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Such a small thing, but it meant everything. Those Sunday mornings had been their time. Just the two of them talking and laughing and planning their week together. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. "I'm sorry too. I should have told you it mattered to me instead of just being hurt that you forgot." They sat in silence for a moment, both lost in memories of better times. Tom could feel something shifting between them like ice beginning to crack on a frozen lake. "What else did I stop doing?" he asked. Lisa smiled sadly. "You stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. You stopped asking about my day and actually listening to the answer. You stopped dancing with me in the kitchen." Each item on her list felt like another weight added to his shoulders. When had he become the kind of man who took his wife for granted? When had he stopped seeing her as a person with her own hopes and dreams and started seeing her as just part of the furniture? "What did I stop doing?" Lisa asked. Tom was surprised by the question. He had been so focused on his own failures that he hadn't thought about hers. But if they were being honest, really honest, then it had to go both ways. "You stopped telling me when things bothered you. You used to call me out when I was being selfish or thoughtless. Lately you just withdraw and get quiet. I got tired of feeling like I was nagging you all the time. But I need you to tell me when I'm screwing up. I can't read your mind. And I need you to care enough to notice when I'm unhappy without me having to spell it out for you." They were both quiet again, processing the weight of what they had admitted. It felt dangerous and necessary at the same time, like surgery that might kill the patient but was the only chance for survival. "We really messed this up, didn't we?" Tom said. "Yeah, we did. Can we fix it?" Lisa looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I don't know, but I want to try. Do you?" Tom thought about all the reasons why it might be easier to just give up. They had hurt each other. They had grown apart. They had built habits and patterns that would be hard to break. Starting over would mean admitting they had wasted years being unhappy when they could have been working on their problems. But then he thought about losing her completely. About coming home to an empty house. About becoming one of those divorced guys who only saw their wife on awkward holidays and special occasions. About throwing away the best thing that had ever happened to him because they were both too scared to do the work. "Yes," he said, "I want to try. But I don't know how, neither do I, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we can figure it out together." Tom reached over and took her hand. It was the first time they had held hands in months, and it felt both familiar and foreign at the same time. "It's going to be hard," he said. "Everything worthwhile is hard. We might mess it up again. Probably. But we might not." Tom squeezed her hand and felt something that had been dead inside him for months flutter back to life. It wasn't love exactly, not yet. But it was hope. And maybe that was enough to start with. 3 weeks after that night when Tom canceled his trip to Chicago, they were sitting in Dr. Peterson's office again. But this time felt different. Instead of sitting on opposite ends of the couch like strangers, they were sitting close enough that their knees almost touched. "How has it been going since our last session?" Dr. Peterson asked, looking between them with cautious optimism. Lisa and Tom exchanged glances. How could they explain that everything had changed and nothing had changed all at the same time? "Better," Lisa said carefully, "but also harder." "What do you mean by that?" Tom shifted in his seat. "We're talking more, but the conversations are intense. Sometimes I feel like we're performing surgery without anesthesia." Dr. Peterson nodded. "That's actually very normal. When couples start addressing issues they've been avoiding, it can feel overwhelming at first." The truth was, the past 3 weeks had been an emotional roller coaster. Some days were good. They would have breakfast together, actually talk about their plans for the day, maybe even laugh about something silly. Tom had started bringing Lisa coffee in bed again on Sunday mornings, and she had started telling him when something bothered her instead of just going quiet. But other days were brutal. They would start talking about one small issue, and suddenly find themselves arguing about everything that had gone wrong in their marriage. Old resentments would bubble up like poison from a wound that hadn't healed properly. "Tell me about one of the difficult conversations," Dr. Peterson prompted gently. Lisa looked at Tom, silently asking if he was okay with sharing. He nodded. "A few nights ago we were talking about money," Lisa began. "Tom mentioned that he might need to work some weekend hours to catch up on a project, and I got upset." "Not just upset, Tom added. Really upset. Like, crying and yelling upset. What was underneath that reaction, Lisa? Lisa took a deep breath. I realized that for the past 2 years, Tom has always chosen work over me. Every time. Weekend plans canceled for conferences. Date nights postponed for deadlines. Even our anniversary dinner got moved because of some client emergency. Tom felt his jaw tighten. They had talked about this before, and he thought they had worked through it. But I explained that I was doing it for us. To build our future. See, this is where it gets complicated, Dr. Peterson said. Tom, you were making sacrifices you thought were necessary. Lisa, you were feeling abandoned and unimportant. Both of your feelings are valid, but how do we fix it? Tom asked. I can't just stop working hard. We have bills, we have goals. And I don't want you to stop working hard, Lisa said, her voice getting emotional. I just want to feel like I matter too. Like our relationship is worth protecting, not just something that will be there whenever you get around to it. This was the pattern they kept falling into. They would identify a problem, but finding a solution felt impossible. How do you balance career ambitions with relationship needs? How do you rebuild trust when both people have been hurt? We tried to make a schedule, Tom said to Dr. Peterson. Work hours, couple time, individual time. But it felt so mechanical. Like we were scheduling love, Lisa added. Tuesday 7 to 9 p.m., be romantic. Dr. Peterson smiled. Many couples struggle with this. The spontaneity you had early in your relationship has to be intentionally recreated now. That doesn't make it less meaningful, just different. After the therapy session, they drove home in comfortable silence. These sessions were exhausting but necessary, like going to the gym for their relationship. They were building new muscles, learning new ways to communicate and connect. I'm proud of us, Lisa said suddenly as they pulled into their driveway. Yeah, we're doing the work. Even when it's hard. Even when it would be easier to just go back to ignoring our problems. Tom parked the car but didn't get out immediately. Some days I wonder if we're crazy for trying to fix this. Maybe we've just grown into different people who aren't compatible anymore. Lisa turned to face him. Do you really believe that? Tom thought about it honestly. No. I think we're the same people we always were, just scared and hurt and lost. But the people we fell in love with are still in there somewhere. That evening, they decided to try something new. Instead of watching television after dinner like they usually did, they sat on their back porch and just talked. No agenda, no problem solving, just conversation. What's something you've always wanted to try but never did? Lisa asked. Tom was surprised by the question. When was the last time someone had asked him about his dreams instead of his deadlines? I always wanted to learn to play guitar, he said. Not to be in a band or anything, just to be able to sit around a campfire and play songs. So why don't you? I don't know. Time, I guess. Money for lessons. We could buy you a cheap guitar. There are videos online to teach you. Tom looked at her like she had suggested he climb Mount Everest. Really? Why not? What's something I've always wanted to try? Tom had to think about this. He realized with shame that he hadn't paid attention to Lisa's dreams and interests in a long time. I honestly don't know. Tell me. I've always wanted to take a pottery class. Something about working with clay, making something beautiful with my hands. Let's do it. Both of us. Guitar lessons for me, pottery for you. It was a small thing, but it felt revolutionary. For the first time in years, they were talking about adding things to their lives instead of just managing problems. Over the following weeks, their house started to sound different. Tom would practice guitar in the evenings badly at first, but with growing confidence. Lisa would come home with clay under her fingernails and stories about the other people in her pottery class. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. One night, Tom came home to find Lisa crying at the kitchen table. What's wrong? He asked, immediately worried. I messed up my pottery project today. 3 weeks of work and I dropped it. It shattered completely. Tom sat down next to her. I'm sorry. That must have been frustrating. It's not just the pottery, Lisa said through tears. It's everything. Some days I feel like we're making progress and other days it feels hopeless. Like we're just pretending to be happy. Tom felt his stomach drop. Were they pretending? Was all this effort just a way of postponing the inevitable? Are you having second thoughts about us? He asked quietly. Lisa wiped her eyes. Not about us. About whether we can really change. Whether we can break all these bad patterns we've built up over the years. Tom reached over and took her hand. Dr. Peterson said it would be hard. That we'd have setbacks. I know. But knowing it intellectually and living it are two different things. They sat together in the kitchen, holding hands and facing the reality that healing their marriage was going to be messier and more complicated than either of them had expected. But for the first time in years, they were facing it together. 6 months later, Lisa was standing in their kitchen making coffee when she heard something that made her smile. Tom was in the living room playing guitar, and for the first time he was playing an actual song instead of just practicing chords. It was Wonderwall by Oasis, and he was singing along quietly, his voice rusty but determined. She poured 2 cups of coffee and walked into the living room. Tom looked up from his guitar with a sheepish grin. "I know it's not great," he said. "It's perfect," Lisa replied, handing him his coffee. "Remember when you said you wanted to play songs around a campfire? Well, we don't have a campfire, but we have a living room." Tom set down his guitar and pulled Lisa onto the couch next to him. It was Sunday morning, and they had started a new tradition. No phones, no television, no work talk. Just coffee and conversation and sometimes music. "How did your pottery class go yesterday?" Tom asked. Lisa's face lit up. "I finally finished that vase I've been working on for 3 weeks. It's not perfect, but it's mine. And it didn't break this time." Over the past 6 months, they had both learned that progress wasn't a straight line. There were good weeks and bad weeks, breakthroughs and setbacks. But somehow they were different people than they had been that night when Tom almost left for Chicago. The change hadn't happened overnight. It had come in small moments and daily choices. Tom started asking Lisa about her day and actually listening to the answer. Lisa started sharing her feelings instead of bottling them up until she exploded. They began touching each other again, casual touches like hands on shoulders or quick kisses goodbye. Dr. Peterson had helped them understand that they weren't trying to go back to who they used to be. Those people were young and naive and thought love would be enough to solve any problem. Instead, they were building something new. A relationship based on choice rather than just feeling. Communication rather than assumption. "I have something to tell you," Tom said, setting down his coffee cup. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. Even after all this progress, she still sometimes braced herself for bad news. "My boss offered me the promotion to regional manager," Tom continued. "That's great," Lisa said, but she could hear the uncertainty in her own voice. It would mean more money, but also more travel. Probably 2 or 3 trips a month. 6 months ago, Tom would have just taken the job without discussing it. Lisa would have smiled and said it was wonderful while secretly resenting the decision. They both would have pretended everything was fine until the resentment poisoned everything between them. "What do you want to do?" Lisa asked. "I want to talk about it with you." "Really talk about it?" "The pros and cons, how it would affect us, what we think is best for our future." They spent the next hour discussing the job offer. Tom admitted he was tempted by the prestige and the salary increase. Lisa admitted she was worried about falling back into old patterns where work came first and their marriage came second. "What if we made some rules?" Lisa suggested. "Like no work trips during our anniversary week. And maybe you could try to schedule them so you're not gone every weekend." "I could ask about that," Tom said. "And maybe we could use some of the extra money to take a real vacation together. Somewhere we've never been. Where would you want to go?" "I don't know." "Where would you want to go?" Lisa laughed. "We're terrible at making decisions together. We're getting better." It was true. 6 months ago, they couldn't agree on what to watch on television. Now they were planning their future together, considering each other's needs and fears. That afternoon, they decided to clean out their spare room, which had become a dumping ground for things they didn't know what to do with. As they sorted through old boxes, they found their wedding album buried under a pile of forgotten Christmas decorations. "Should we look at it?" Lisa asked, holding the album like it might explode. Tom nodded, and they sat on the floor surrounded by boxes and memories. The photos were beautiful. They looked so young, so confident, so sure that love would conquer everything. "Look how happy we were," Lisa said, tracing their faces in the wedding photos. "We can be happy again," Tom said. "Different happy, but real happy. Do you really believe that?" Tom closed the album and looked at his wife. Really looked at her. She was older now, with lines around her eyes that hadn't been there on their wedding day, but she was also stronger, braver, more honest about what she needed and wanted. "Yeah, I do. We're not the same people we were when we got married, and that's okay. Those people didn't know how to fight for their relationship. We're learning how." Later that evening, they were cooking dinner together when Tom's phone rang. It was his boss, probably calling about the promotion. 6 months ago, Tom would have answered immediately, no matter what he was doing with Lisa. Instead, he looked at the phone, then at Lisa, then turned the phone to silent. "Aren't you going to answer that?" Lisa asked. "He can leave a voicemail." "Right now I'm making dinner with my wife." Such a small thing, but Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. This was what she had been trying to tell him all along. It wasn't that she wanted him to stop caring about work. She just wanted to know that she mattered too. After dinner, they sat on their back porch watching the sunset. It had become another one of their new traditions, these quiet moments together at the end of the day. "Do you think we would have made it?" Lisa asked suddenly. "If we hadn't had that conversation 6 months ago, if you had gone to Chicago, would we still be together now?" Tom was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't think so. I think we would have kept drifting apart until one day we would have woken up and realized we were strangers living in the same house." "That's what I think too. Are you glad we fought for this, even though it's been hard?" Lisa leaned against Tom's shoulder. "Especially because it's been hard. Easy things don't usually last." As they watched the sun disappear behind the trees, Lisa realized something had fundamentally changed in how she thought about their marriage. Before, she had seen it as something that should just work naturally, like breathing. When it got difficult, she assumed it meant they were failing. Now she understood that a good marriage wasn't something that happened to you. It was something you built day by day, choice by choice. It required intention and effort and the willingness to keep showing up even when it was hard. Tom reached over and took her hand. "I love you," he said simply. "I love you too." The words were the same ones they had said 1,000 times before, but they felt different now. Heavier, more intentional. They weren't just expressions of feeling, but promises of action. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tom would have to call his boss back about the promotion. Lisa had a difficult project at work that was stressing her out. They would probably have disagreements and moments of frustration. But tonight, sitting on their back porch holding hands and watching the stars come out, they both knew they were going to be okay. Not perfect, but okay. And sometimes okay was more than enough.